لله رب العالمين. لك الحمد يا ربنا حمد الشاكرين المعترفين بنعمائك العظيمة وآلائك الجسيمة. لك الحمد يا ربنا أنت أحق أن تحمد، ولك الشكر أنت أحق أن تشكر، وأنت على كل شيء قدير. لك العتبى حتى ترضى، ولا حول ولا قوة لنا إلا بك. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه، بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة، وجاهد في الله حق الجهاد حتى أتاه اليقين. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على الحبيب المصطفى محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه ومن اهتدى بهديه وعمل بسنته إلى يوم الدين، وارض عنا معهم بفضلك وكرمك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم آمين. I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of heavens and earth, our cherisher, our sustainer, our provider. We thank Allah for every blessing He has bestowed upon us and our families and loved ones. And we express our gratitude to the Lord in words and action. And I say Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah for the blessings that I know and the blessings that I do not know. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is Allah's final prophet and messenger, the bearer of glad tidings, the role model to be followed. Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim tasliman kathira. May the blessings and the peace of Allah be upon him and his family and his companions and followers and every man or woman that walks in their footsteps until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make each and every one of us among them. Allahumma ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The month of Muharram has already started, and with it, the new Hijri year 1437. 1,437 years since the Prophet ﷺ migrated from Mecca to Medina. And this remarkable journey that changed the world as we know it. And at the very beginning of the month of Muharram, we remember the events that made that month extremely memorable. And not only that Muharram is one of the sacred months, Al-Ashhur Al-Hurum, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically talked about in the Quran. The month of Muharram is also witness to remarkable and monumental events that changed the face of history. One of those events, obviously, is when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina right after Hijrah. And he realized that the Jewish people of Medina fast on the 10th of Muharram. So he asked them, why is it that you fast today? And they basically said, well, that is the day on which Allah delivered Musa and the Israelites from Egypt. Remember the story when Musa ﷺ took the Israelites out of Egypt? That happened on that day. And that is why we remember it. So basically the Prophet ﷺ told him, well, we are more deserving of Musa's legacy than you guys are. نَحْنُ أَوْلَى بِمُوسَى مِنْكُمْ, he said. And he started to fast on that day, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he said that I will continue to fast inshallah next year on the 9th as well. And then there is also another narrative of a huge event that happened in the month of Muharram, and that is when Imam Hussein was assassinated. He leaves the city of Medina and he travels to Karbala in order to stand up against the tyranny of the Umayyads. And he was in a small group of men, and in his wildest dreams he never imagined that the state would basically attempt to murder the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ, but about that he was definitely wrong. There's no end to evil and tyranny when they take hold of people, especially those who are in power. But I wanted to talk to you inshallah today about some thoughts and ideas pertaining to those memories of the month of Muharram that we remember today. And in the story of Musa alayhi salam, there's so much to learn. And there's so much to gather. And while I will not basically go through the history and tell you the lessons, I will tell you the history inshallah ta'ala in a way that will make those lessons very, very apparent. And if you remember the story, Musa alayhi salam is basically sent as a prophet, and his primary job is to deliver the people of Israel. So he goes to Pharaoh, who in the Quranic narrative we're not 100% sure if it was his adopted father or if it was his adopted brother. We are not 100% sure. The Quran doesn't tell us very clearly. In biblical tradition, it was his brother, not the father, that confronted him. But either way, Musa alayhi salam goes up to Pharaoh and he says, as the Quran says, أرسل معي بني إسرائيل. Let my people, the people of Israel, go with me. Go where? Go to the land of Palestine and establish what would eventually become the state of Israel in the historic and in the ancient sense. But Pharaoh categorically refused. He said, I will not let the Israelites go. Right? And of course, hearing about the history while the events in Palestine unfold today is very, very difficult. Learning about the persecution of the Palestinian people and the constant killing that is taking place as we speak is something that agonizes the mind and pains the heart. But the believer always has room in his or her heart, in his or her mind, to really look at the bigger picture and to understand things for what they really are. We don't get caught up in floods of emotion. It is very important to distinguish between evildoers and people who followed the prophets. And as the Quran said, among the Israelites themselves, there were people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed as leaders. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا. Allah established from amongst them leaders that became inspirations to other nations as well. So not every Israelite was bad or evil, and inshallah ta'ala I will demonstrate to you that in the course of this khutbah with full acknowledgement of the horrors that our brothers and sisters in Palestine face today. But the question again, why is it that Pharaoh refused to deliver the Israelites? Essentially, I think that it was a double-sided decision. On the one hand, there is the honor and dignity. We are the slave owners. We are the slave masters. Why should we let our slaves go? What's the point? I mean, right here in America, people had to fight wars in order to make sure that slaves are emancipated, right? That is one of the main reasons why America, the North and the South had, the Civil War. It's not easy because number one, there is the arrogance about it. We are the slave owners, why should we let them go? But then there is the most important, in my judgment, the most important point here, which is the economic dimension. You have 25, 30,000, with some estimates, Israelite slaves in Egypt that basically carried the economy on their shoulders. They did all kinds of different types of work at virtually no compensation. Okay? We will let you live and eat and drink and have shelter and have clothes, and that is your payment basically. So for Egypt, the Israelites were like Mexicans to America. Right? If you take all, 30 million illegal immigrants out of this country, what is going to happen to American economy, right? And so it was a very difficult decision for the Egyptian leadership to make, okay? And then when Musa alayhi salam started posing a threat to the establishment, to the status quo, he started posing a threat to the way of life of the Egyptian people, started becoming a threat to their economic well-being, to their financial interests. Pharaoh had it in his mind that he needed to kill Musa. Even though he grew up in his household, but he needed to kill him. He needed to murder him, rather. But let me ask you this question. Why is it that Pharaoh hesitated about killing Musa alayhi salam? Did he kill Musa? Obviously not. Because Musa survived for a number of years, by the way, and I will tell you why I think it was a number of years. Musa survived, and he continued to pressure the government until, in the darkness of the night, he took the Israelites and left. But why is it that Pharaoh was not able to take the life of Musa alayhi salam? Because Pharaoh was a very smart dictator. He was an intelligent dictator. If he killed Musa, what is going to happen? Musa will eventually become a martyr. He will become a symbol of change. He will become, the underdog that was killed by government and by, political authority. So he would not do that. Rather, what Pharaoh continued to do is to build consensus that he needed to kill Musa, right? So he would make statements such as, "Dharuni aqtul Musa." "Dharuni aqtul," let me kill Musa. Why? You don't need our permission. I mean, we're all your subjects. Pharaoh, why do you need our permission to take the life of Musa? But again, public opinion matters to dictators. Public opinion matters. And that's why in authoritarian countries, Middle East and otherwise, when governments are in trouble, they bribe their populations. They literally bribe them off by giving them money. $50,000 every citizen of our country will get. In times of political turmoil, when the Arab Spring was happening, right? The governments of the Gulf, they literally bribed off their populations to ensure that, they don't have any funky thoughts. And that everyone stays in line. Even though they're dictators, but they worry about public opinion. They worry about what their populations say and think. So he was worried, "Dharuni aqtul Musa." Let me kill Musa. You guys, I really care about you. I am worried about your way of life. "Inni akhafu an yubaddila dinakum." I am worried that he might cause your very religion to change. He will change your faith. He's a corrupt person. Right? أو أن يظهر في الأرض الفساد. Or he might spread corruption on earth. I don't want that for you. I'm your leader and I care about you. Essentially, what he cares about in the end is his power and authority. Right? But Pharaoh, just like any other Pharaoh, uses these indirect arguments in order to achieve what he wants to achieve in the end. But on the other hand, Musa alayhi salam was also very, very smart. He would not provoke Pharaoh reason to take his life. Right? He was very careful. In fact, the Quran talks about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired both Musa and Harun to ask the Israelites to pray at home. Don't make a public display out of your prayer. Pray at home. Don't provoke the soldiers of Pharaoh. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى مُوسَى وَأَخِيهِ أَنِ اتَّخِذُوا لِقَوْمِكُمَا فِي مِصْرَ بُيُوتًا. Right? Establish houses of worship, meaning, in Egypt for your people. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs them in the ayah, وَاجْعَلُوا بُيُوتَكُمْ قِبْلَةً, and make your own homes into a qibla, meaning a place of prayer. Which is very, very intelligent. You know that the government heightens security and everyone is after you and all the eyes are on you. They're waiting for you to make a tiny little mistake for them to go after you, right? And then you go out there and rub it in everyone's nose. That is probably imprudent to do that. So while Pharaoh was, stirring up the situation and getting everyone to agree with him that he should take the life of Musa alayhi salam, Musa on the other hand was very, very smart, and he would not give him a reason to hurt him. So he asked the Israelites to pray at home. But we need to heighten the pressure a little bit, right? We need to heighten the pressure on Pharaoh to deliver the Israelites and to let them go. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent those 9 miracles. Remember the ayah in the Quran, وَأَخْرِجْ يَدَكَ مِنْ جَيْبِكَ تَخْرُجْ بَيْضَاءَ مِنْ غَيْرِ سُوءٍ. When you put your hand, it told Musa alayhi salam, put your hand in your pocket and take it out, and your hand will shine like it's a light bulb without hurting you. So that is, and then the Quran says, فِي تِسْعِ آيَاتٍ إِلَى فِرْعَوْنَ وَقَوْمِهِ, in 9 miracles in order to establish the truth to Pharaoh and his people. Okay, what are those 9 things? So the hand that lights up is one. What about the staff that turned into a snake? Right? That's 2. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-A'raf talks about 5. What are those 5? الطوفان والجراد والضفادع الطوفان والجراد والقمل والضفادع والدم. Right? What are those? The flood. The Nile flooded all the agricultural landscape of Egypt. So it destroyed the crop. Locusts, and locusts were just like billions upon billions of locusts invaded the country. It's a huge nuisance, but they also eat the crops. They destroy the crops. For, an agrarian society such as Egypt, that is the foundation of their economy. Right? Wasn't that what you were so worried about, Pharaoh? Where here it is. The pressure intensifies upon Pharaoh. right? Ad-dafadi', frogs. I mean, disgusting, but it was everywhere. They would open all of their pots in the kitchens and the pantries, everywhere. It's just, under the bed, under their pillows, in their bed sheets, in their carriages, everywhere. There were frogs everywhere. Lice in their hairs and in kids' hairs. It's really bad. The situation was getting extremely bad. And then their water turns into blood. Disgusting. So that's how many? That's 7. 5 and 2. That's 7. And then the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how He inflicted famine upon the Egyptians. وَلَقَدْ أَخَذْنَا آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ بِالسِّنِينَ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ. We hurt them by famines. So there were widespread famines in a country that had the Nile. And then the 9th one is something that the scholars disputed a little bit, right? And most of them agreed on that. One reference in the Quran, when Musa alayhi salam prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, رَبَّنَا اطْمِسْ عَلَىٰ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. Ya Allah, destroy their wealth by making the earth swallow it. Now what is a classic example of a man who experienced that? Qarun. Qarun was the example that was mentioned in the Quran. He was, established this massive wealth, and his treasure chests were so massive that people needed, to carry the chains, with the key chains. They needed like 5 or 10 men to just carry them. Okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the earth to open up and to swallow the mansion of Qarun. And that not only happened to Qarun, it happened to so many of the other wealthy billionaires of Egypt at the time. And brothers and sisters, that's the thing about tyranny, stubbornness, the haughtiness of tyranny, the arrogance of tyranny. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what kinds of stuff is happening to you, right? You are so blinded by tyranny that you don't see anything else. And what does Pharaoh do despite all that? قَالَ سَنُقَتِّلُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَنَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُمْ وَإِنَّا فَوْقَهُمْ قَاهِرُونَ. We will continue our government policy of killing the firstborn child in every Israelite family. And we will continue to basically spare their mothers so that they witness the horror. I mean, imagine you take a son from his mother and you kill the son in front of the mother. So he was not sparing them, sparing their lives out of kindness. He wants the mothers to witness. Why? Because if I take one child from every family, everyone else is going to be in line. Everyone else is going to be so scared that they will refuse to stand up against us or demand their freedom or whatever that is. And that's the remarkable thing. You ask yourselves, why is it that the people of Egypt, witnessing all the disasters happening around them, social, economic, moral, right? And they continue to support Pharaoh. Why? Why is it that the German people continue to support the slaughter of minorities, including Jews, in Europe, and just observing what the Nazi government was doing? The German people were not known to be evil people historically. They just became like that in the 1920s, and they upheld what Hitler did. Why? It's remarkable. Why did the people of the Soviet Union supported Stalin and others before and after him? Why is it that people to the present day continue to support tyrants that are destroying the social fabric, they're destroying the economy, they're destroying the very, identity of their societies, and people are still supportive of them? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you the answer in the Quran about Pharaoh. فَاسْتَخَفَّ قَوْمَهُ فَأَطَاعُوا. He took his people lightly, and he got them busy and distracted. He got them busy and distracted, maybe at his time gladiator games. Today they get their people busy and distracted by sports, soccer games and stuff like that. Get people distracted by nationalism. It's us versus the Israelites. Come on, you guys are Egyptians. You have to stand up for who you are and fight, those minorities. They are the reason why you are in that state. Exploiting the existence of minorities in a society, right, for political gain. SubhanAllah, as old as the human story itself. Isn't that fascinating? فَاسْتَخَفَّ قَوْمَهُ فَأَطَاعُوهُ. He did not take his people seriously. He assumed that they are unintelligent, so he continued to deceive them and continued to distract them. And they bought into it with their own choice. They bought into it. And when he continued to persecute the Israelites, Pharaoh did, Now, some of the Israelites got extremely hesitant, and they started losing their minds, and they started losing their stamina. Yeah, Musa, enough is enough. Come on. It's been a couple of years now. We've been waiting. What is it? What is going to happen? And they started complaining and saying stuff like, أُذِينَا مِنْ قَبْلِ أَن تَأْتِيَنَا وَمِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جِئْتَنَا. We are being hurt and persecuted before you came, and now we continue to be hurt and persecuted after you came. قَالَ عَسَى رَبُّكُمْ أَن يُهْلِكَ عَدُوَّكُمْ. Have you forgotten that your Lord is capable of destroying your enemy if He wanted to? وَيَسْتَخْلِفَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And He will establish you to rule the earth, which is, subhanAllah, exactly what happened to the Israelites. He will establish you to rule the earth. فَيَنْظُرَ مَاذَا تَعْمَلُونَ. And then He will judge your actions. See, it is easy for us to complain and to say our rights are taken away and we're being persecuted and we are hurt, right? It is easy to say, we were subjected to extermination and annihilation and a Holocaust. And then when things turn around and 50 years later we have power and control, we start practicing the same exact thing that our oppressors were practicing. How familiar is that story? How familiar is that? Right? One day you're being persecuted and you complain. And another day when you are in a position of power, you practice the same exact things that your oppressor used to practice against you. It's a very familiar human story. And it doesn't just apply to one group or the other, I swear. It also applies to us. It applies to us. In the course of change in so many Muslim countries, the same people that used to complain about political power, when they reached power, what did they do? They used much more brutal methods against their populations. You look at Afghanistan and other places and what happened in those. SubhanAllah. It's an ancient story in our human existence that we continue to suffer from until today. And so the idea is not, and by the way, it also applies to some small things in our daily experiences. I'm not just talking about countries and nations. I'm talking about us. I am talking about you being oppressed by your supervisor at work, right? Your supervisor who does not give you any vacations, who breathes down your neck all the time, who continues to harass you. And then when you become supervisor and you become the manager yourself, how do you treat your employees? You might think it doesn't apply to you, but I promise you it applies to all of us. So they continued to complain, or many of them at least, continued to complain to Musa alayhi salam, and Musa continued to remind them, you know what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of turning the table around. He is capable of changing spots. One day you're oppressed, another day you will become in charge. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge your actions. And He will look at what you do. How will you fare then? That is the question. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us our sins and to establish us with firmness on His path. Brothers and sisters, raise your hands and speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the heart. وَدُعُ اللَّهَ وَأَنْتُمْ مُوقِنُونَ. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وقائد الغر الميامين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم الصادق الوعد الأمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. My dear brothers and sisters, you some highlights from the story of Musa alayhi salam and Pharaoh and the deliverance of the Israelites, since this is one of the things that we remember at the very beginning of the month of Muharram. It is that is the day that the Israelites commemorate, and they used to fast on that day, the 10th of Muharram, because just like us, they follow the lunar calendar. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he came to Medina, he realized that the Jews fast on that day, their own fasting, and he decided to adopt that legacy, because the legacy of Musa alayhi salam is our legacy as well. And he said to the Israelites, we are more deserving of Musa's legacy than you guys are. He's our prophet just like he is yours. And I shared with you some thoughts today, and I was going through the story, basically, and we arrived at the point where the persecution of the Israelites continued to increase. And they came complaining, many of them came complaining to Musa alayhi salam. And Musa alayhi salam reminded them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of turning the table, and He is capable of basically extinguishing their enemy. But the bigger question is, how will you fare when you have been established in the earth? How will you yourself behave when you're not an oppressed person anymore, when you are in charge, when you are in power? And so that's where I ended it. And I wanted to remind you of something really important. Overnight, the command came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Israelites were instructed to leave their houses overnight and travel all the way to, through Sinai into Palestine. But let me ask you a question first. Was that the first time Musa alayhi salam crosses Sinai? It is not the first time. We know that at least it has to be the second time. Because one time, before he became prophet, when he, was basically had an argument, an altercation with someone and killed him, he ran away. And when he ran away, he crossed Sinai, through Palestine into, Iraq, going to Midian. My question to you, in the story anywhere, did Musa alayhi salam cross a waterfront in his first journey? There's nothing like that. It doesn't say anywhere that he had to take a boat and cross somewhere. Can you basically travel all the way from the Nile to Iraq, let's say, the Euphrates, without crossing a waterfront? Well, today you can't. Why? Because there is a waterfront that cuts through the Suez Canal, right? The Suez Canal was dug in the late 1800s. What was there before? Nothing. So why is it that Musa and the Israelites did not take the same route and crossing from the place where the Suez Canal occupies today, going through Sinai on land all the way to Midian? Why did they have to go? And again, think about it if you understand your geography. They have to cross what in order to actually come to a waterfront? They have to cross at least the Gulf, right? The Suez Gulf of the Red Sea. Which means that Musa alayhi salam deliberately ignored the first route, and he chose to take another route that would bring him to the sea. Why? And I'm pretty sure, knowing how, followers nag their leaders all the time, I am pretty sure that so many Israelites gave him such a hard time. Yeah, Musa, you're taking the wrong route. We're going to hit the water. We don't have any boats or any ships, nothing. Why don't we just go a little bit north and cross Sinai, a little up north closer to the Mediterranean? Why did you take us southeast? Because that's what he did. And I bet you, I don't know, but I bet you that Musa alayhi salam did not know the answer to these questions. Because he was not going on his own cognizance. Musa alayhi salam was following the plan and the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, Musa, here's the navigation, this is the map, this is the route you need to take. Would Musa question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Hasha. He would never do such thing. Allah said, take this route and I'm taking it. Guys, trust me. Trust me. But then, and I will explain why he took that route in a second, but then another important question that I always ask myself when I study the story of Musa alayhi salam is, if it was so easy for Musa to ask the Israelites to pick up their luggage and their suitcases and leave overnight, why hasn't he done that a couple of years earlier? Why did he wait? Because again, in order for Allah, I talked about the 9 ayat, the 9 signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to apply pressure on Pharaoh. Those 9 signs took time, right? Because again, a crop is being destroyed, and famine after famine after famine, and the Nile flooding. That must have taken a couple of years. To show the true effects on the economy, it must have taken a few years. So why did Musa wait for a few years when it was just as easy as creating an event and inviting all the Israelites and telling them, we're just going to leave tomorrow morning, you guys? Why did he wait? Number one, he waited because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed him. But I also think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted Musa to wait because there was another job that needed to be done in Egypt. And what is that? Making da'wah. It wasn't just about delivering the Israelites. He's a prophet after all. You don't need a prophet to deliver a people, right? To take them from point A to point B. You need a prophet to tell people about Islam, right? And Musa alayhi salam, while he was being battered and attacked by the government, he was working with the Israelites on spreading Islam to the people of Egypt, spreading monotheism to the people of Egypt. But then there's a third reason that one of my teachers taught me was really, really beautiful. If you have someone that was born into slavery and grew up as a slave and aged as a slave, is it so easy to say, hey, inshallah, tomorrow you are a free man, you can go wherever you want to go? In fact, right here in America, when President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Declaration, thousands of slaves after a few days came back to their slave owners and said, hey guys, can we just come work for you for free? We just don't know what to do with our lives. The idea of being a free person and deciding on my own, I don't know how to do that. So I will come work for you for free. SubhanAllah. That's why slavery crushes people's souls. It crushes you. It makes you into a subhuman category. So it was not easy for Musa to go to the Israelites and say, hey guys, by the way, I'm here to deliver you, let's leave tomorrow. They would have never listened to him. He needed to work with them, and he needed to organize meetings, and he needed to use psychology, and he needed to organize conferences and word of mouth and to make da'wah to the Israelites themselves. Do you think that everyone believed that he was the great deliverer of Israel? Probably many of them did not even believe that. He had to do some work on his own people in order to get them to understand you are a human, and your freedom is the greatest value you could ever live for. And even if it means your life, live as a free man, die as a free man would be better than you living as a slave. And it took him a couple of years to engage his people about that. That is why the deliverance was delayed. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed them, they left. And I can't even imagine how effective the network was. You're talking about 25, 30,000 people in the ancient world. How do you spread the word among those people so effectively and so efficiently overnight? There must have been spies. There must have been people who are weak, who just stayed behind. Oh, this is too dangerous. We're not going with you. That's crazy. You want us to just run away from our slave masters and pick up and leave? And they wake up in the morning, Isaac, where did you go? And they don't find me? A lot of people, again, understand human psychology. The Quran just tells you the framework. It tells you the highlights. But you need to delve a little bit deeper and figure it out, right? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how Musa alayhi salam was able to effectively spread the word, telling the time and place we're all going to meet before people woke up. They were gone. And Pharaoh woke up in the morning at the news. All the Israelites were gone. So Musa alayhi salam was trying the legal way for years, legally. Let my people go, let my people go, let my people go. And it didn't work, so he had to resort to take the law into his own hands and to resort to an illegal method. Let's just take the slaves and run, which again, by the standards of the time, that was an illegal act, right? It was a heroic act, but it was illegal. And you remember the story of the rabbit and the tortoise, right? When they were trying to race. And the rabbit knows that it's much faster than the tortoise. So he just sat there and kept, drinking juice and waiting. And then when it actually started the race, the tortoise was almost at the finish line, and the tortoise won the race. You guys know the story. I think that's exactly what happened between, the Israelites and Pharaoh. Pharaoh said, you know what, they're all on foot and they have women and children. We will catch up with them. You guys, let's organize our army. Let's put our battalions together, our troops. So it took him a few days. Because by the time they started going after the Israelites had already arrived at the waterfront. And that was the moment of truth for them. When they were sandwiched between the army of Pharaoh behind them and the Suez Gulf in front of them, that was the moment of truth that distinguishes true believers from people with shaky faith. Many of them came to Musa alayhi salam and said to him, Inna lamudrakun. This is it. They caught up to us. They will take us. They will kill us. We're done. And Musa alayhi salam, the same man that so often hesitated before, that asked Allah to send the message to his brother Harun instead, that has such bad temper that he killed a man just because he was arguing with him, that was the same Musa. When all the tests and the trials and tribulations shaped him and shaped his heart, that is the same Musa that gave them the unwavering statement in the end. قَالَ كَلَّا. That will never happen. إِنَّ مَعِيَ رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينَ. My Lord is with me and He will guide me. He did not bring us here for nothing, my brothers and sisters. You just need to be a little bit more patient. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed him to point his staff at the sea, and the sea opened up, split up into two big mountains of water. فَكَانَ كُلُّ فِرْقٍ كَالطَّوْدِ الْعَظِيمِ. And He instructed them to walk. Imagine the tortuous journey. People walking on the seabed, basically. But what is really remarkable about all this, it's remarkable, almost funny, is that Pharaoh, again, with his arrogance, he witnessed all that. And his soldiers and officers witnessed all that. And his troops witnessed all that. A miracle unfolding before their own eyes. And what do? Rather than think, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, what do they say? Let's go after them. What? Seriously? And the troops went in that same, trench where in the sea, going after the Israelites. Subhanallah. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Seriously? Do you have a mind to think with? Are you even serious? So they go after them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the very last Israelite arrived at shore, He ordered the water to collapse. And everyone in the army was killed, except who? Except Pharaoh himself, who managed to swim to the shore. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, الْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً. Today we will spare your physical body, and you will not die right away, because we want your body to be spared and preserved, so that you become a reminder to those who will come after you. And subhanAllah, this is remarkable. Historians say that Pharaoh is Ramesses II, right? Now if you go to Egypt today, the most known Pharaoh of all of Egypt and its ancient history is Ramesses II. Why? Because his statues are everywhere. It's the only Pharaoh that we know by face. We know his facial features, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved him. In a country that became predominantly Muslim, people continue to walk and see Pharaoh and be reminded of that history and the arrogance, right? And every Pharaoh after him, subhanallah. And while he was dying, what does he say? قَالَ آمَنْتُ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا الَّذِي آمَنَتْ بِهِ بَنُو إِسْرَائِيلَ. See the arrogance until the very end. He says, I now believe that the only God is the one that the Israelites believe in. He still wouldn't say Allah. It makes sense to me now. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took his life. He did not repent, right? He did not waver. He did not go back. He continued with his arrogance until the very end. And when he knew it was time, he said, okay, fine. I think the Israelites were right. But it was too late. Subhanallah. Again, I told you earlier that there's so many lessons, and I'm not going to tell you, here's the historical fact, and then this is the lesson we learned. But I think I tried in this khutbah to weave it in a way where those lessons become apparent on their own. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our hearts from arrogance. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our hearts from evil and from jealousy. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our hearts from covetousness. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our hearts tender, to make our hearts resilient but humble. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who have the open heart to hear all kinds of things but choose what is righteous. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who acknowledge the truth when it's presented to them and comply with it. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the beginning of this Hijri year a blessed one for all of us. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it a year of success, a year of prosperity for our Muslim community in this part of the world. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this a year of relief for our brothers and sisters that are struggling all around the world. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to establish our community as a community of righteousness and justice, and to help us do the right thing and say the right thing. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us establish a banner of righteousness and goodness and humility that will inspire others to follow. And I ask Allah on this day, as He brought us here together as brothers and sisters, to strengthen our brotherhood and our love for each other. And as He gathered us here, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to gather all of us in His Jannah. Allahumma ameen. اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك عظيم سلطانك وصل على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا فإنك بنا راحم ولا تعذبنا فأنت علينا قادر والطف بنا فيما جرت به المقادير. اللهم بارك لنا في عامنا هذا يا رب العالمين واجعله عام خير وسعادة وهناء. اللهم اجعله عاما لسداد الديون واجعله عاما يا ربنا لإصلاح النفوس واجعله عاما لكفارة الذنوب. اللهم اجعله عام خير على الأمة يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا ثبتنا على طريقك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم انصرنا على عدونا وعدوك. اللهم أعن إخواننا المستضعفين في المشارق والمغارب يا رب العالمين وأبدلهم من بعد خوفهم أمنا يعبدونك لا يشركون بك شيئا. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات المسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا.